So I'm trying to build a bird hatchery to hatch all of my birds inside my barn here. And I framed up this wall okay, but I've been trying to frame up this wall and I've totally screwed it up. Oh no. And my measurements didn't account for the fact that there wasn't gonna be enough space for this top plate to go all the way back. And so now I'm gonna have to fix this problem. Wouldn't you agree, Ginny? So I've now cut it shorter so it'll definitely fit. I'll probably make like a little gap piece after the fact so it's all nice and level for when I put the ceiling in. But yeah, I feel like kind of a dummy. All right, let's try this again. I think that worked. Okay, we're now definitely flush with this side. This goes back far enough that's here. Like I said, I'll just cut like a tiny piece custom to fit this little gap a little bit later on. And then as I'm looking at my corner here, I think these two things will line up a little bit if I just force it with some screws. So Ginny Barncat, I don't think we're screwed anymore, and I think this should work out pretty A-okay. Let's fasten the walls in place. Yes, we are officially starting to look like we have a room in here. We got 3 of the 4 walls up, because I count this as one of the walls. This is another wall, this is another wall, and we gotta build this wall. But I actually have to go do something inside, so I will check back in with you guys on this project tomorrow.
The next morning.
So I'm wicked excited to get out here this morning and start working on the hatchery again.
Oh no.
Oh gosh. All right, looks like I'm gonna have to fix that. But yes, it looks like I've encountered a problem. So as we can see here, this door is definitely gonna be needing a repair. Abby, leave Bet alone. Would you look at that? Their water's already starting to ice up. It's like 5 degrees Fahrenheit this morning, so it is pretty chilly. Definitely have to replace their water at lunchtime. Okay, do good dogs want good treats? Okay, 1 for Toby. 1 for Abby. Enjoy. You know, that door was something I built several years ago when I actually built the brooder house itself, and so probably isn't shocking that it needs this repair. I could feel it over the last couple of days getting looser and looser and wonkier, and so this was kind of an inevitability. The interesting thing about this shed is actually after my birds hatch in this new hatchery, this room right here is gonna be their first step. I built this shed with brooding chickens and ducks and geese in mind, and so it's got some special features that make it easy to clean, easy to keep it warm. And then as the birds get older, they get access to outdoor space and then even more outdoor space before they're fully released out into the pasture. All right, Abby dog, I think we're gonna have to take that door off and repair it. But first I'll rub you on the belly, because you're a good girl. Yes, you are. You're a pepperoni pizza, and you're a good boy. And Abby is definitely the weirder of the 2 dogs. I will say I feel a little bit, I don't know if nostalgic's the word, but looking back on a construction project that I did spring of 2020 was when I built this. And even just looking at the construction and how this door was assembled, there was definitely some flaws to it, which is why it broke down so quickly. But I also realized that like my personal building skills have improved so much since I started this project. So I need to build a new brooder for my ducklings, goslings, and chicks. After doing a bunch of research, I figured out that the easiest and most cost-effective way to do it is by using one of those shed kits. I got my lumber cut, got my platform built, so let's start building. Full disclosure, I'd really only describe my construction capability as like adequate maybe at this point. I found that I was constantly having to like finesse the pieces of wood and maybe like trim off a little bit here and there just to get it exactly right. I expect a few years out from now, I'm gonna be much more like rigid with what I do, and I'm gonna be investing much more in the infrastructure that I use. But at this stage of the game, I think it'd be silly to try to dive right in because I don't know exactly what I want right now. So maintaining some flexibility and maintaining an ability to evolve and adapt and improve my systems, it's just really important to me right now on my farm. You know, we had a real problem with rodents back when we only were down to 1 outdoor barn cat with Pablo Barn Cat when I first built this. And so I know that there were a bunch of rodents living underneath the brooder for a very long time. And yeah, you can actually see the physical evidence of that. Get that nice and back in place. Tighten all these as well. Now let's try reseating our door. Oh, was I not recording? There we go, nice and sturdy. Now it's time to reattach it. There we go, good as new. Nice and sturdy, good job. Such a pretty chicken there, Bet. White as the driven snow. All right, now to the main activity of this morning. And I only have a small window of time to do some of this morning because I have to go to a doctor's appointment. And yeah, I'm a little nervous about having to go to a doctor's appointment. All right, now it's time to construct this wall. So these were the braces that I was using to hold the wall in place when I didn't have the other side up. But now that the other side's gone, I can start building and take these away. First, we should probably double check our measurements. I'm doing this wall last because it's actually going to be the most complicated. There's some real nuances to it that I'm going to have to work around. So some of those nuances include it needs to be flush with this, but I'm going to have to work around the barn's joinery. These oak pins are keeping these massive structures in place, which really holds together the entire barn. My friend Justin, who he and his team were the ones who designed and built this structure, they are craftsmen and everything precisely fits together with all of these massive timbers. And it's what's known as a timber frame, so it all kind of locks together like you're putting together, I don't know if Lincoln Logs is accurate. I think it's more almost like locking together Tinker Toys, if you go old school and you know what I'm talking about. The other weird quirk about this part of the barn is that there's this little step-up platform. This step-up allows me to fit my tractor underneath. So if you look down below, you can see that's where my tractor parks. And it needed the extra ceiling height so that a mid-size or larger tractor could fit underneath it. But because of that platform, that means I have to change my measurements relative to the other framed wall too. And so that's the other complexity. But ultimately, when that wall's there, this space inside here is going to become kind of like a little hangout area. I'm probably going to build a table or something. And this may or may not be where we start to host the local poker games. We're only playing for M&Ms. Hey there, Pablo Barncat. Checking out the construction? Okay, so you can see I'm going to have to actually trim this one down just a little bit. I forgot to compensate for the bottom plate that's going to be running here. And so we have to take 1.5 inches off of that piece. Then this piece is really where it gets complicated because, whoa! Gotta be careful when I get myself whacked by a 2x4 like I was facing off against Hacksaw Jim Duggan. It's the right height that I want relative to that side. The problem is I gotta work around this pin that's right here as well as this pin that's down here. And so that means I'm gonna have to notch out a little portion of this right here to make it all fit. This is where this project's gonna start to get complicated. Now, luckily for me, I have a special little tool dealie here. It should make this process a little bit easier. Basically just push it up against this, and now I have an impression of what that shape is. Now I can take that impression and I can use that as a guideline to figure out where it's gonna fit. So now I just need to mark where the cuts actually need to go. Looks like right about here. You might have noticed that I was making a second mark on the other side of this 2x4. And the reason is because I need to accommodate for this pin back here too. So I need to notch just a little bit out from that side as well. All right, so now we're gonna use our little template here. Pencil that off. As you can see, we have a nice little drawing. And much like a horror movie, it's time to break out the jigsaw. Did you know that jigsaw puzzles used to be cut with jigsaws like this? Like, I don't know this for a fact, and this is totally me making this up and just assuming this is how it works. In olden days, they would have leftover wood, and so they'd use a saw to cut the pieces so that they could all fit together, and you could do like the fine movement with it. So I think that's why jigsaw puzzles are named jigsaw puzzles. It's because they used a jigsaw to do it. Of course, I could be totally wrong about that one. I know you guys are probably saying enough with the trivia, Alex Trebek. Let's get back to the cutting. There we go. Now we're gonna flip it. Remember that spot where I made the notch? I'm just gonna cut by hand just a little tiny cut. That should give me enough flexibility to finagle it in there. All right, let's give it a shot. This is like the moment of truth, if this is gonna fit or not. Today's portion of the video could probably be just me fine-tuning this cut. Let's see. Oh, it's close. This portion seems to fit perfectly. I gotta actually cut off just a little bit more here on the bottom to fit the peg in. There we go. Now you guys might be wondering if cutting these notches into this 2x4, if that's gonna weaken the board. And the answer is yes, it will weaken the board. But I'm not all that concerned about that because number one, I'm gonna be fastening both parts of the board, both above it and below it, to this giant piece of timber right here. And so it's gonna give it enough stability on top of it all. It's not like the roof of this structure is gonna be load bearing at all. And so it should be totally fine. All right, so I'm just checking my heights to make sure everything fits together, which it seems like is the case. Probably when I put the top plate on, I'm gonna have to cut that piece a little bit short because I'm gonna run into the same problem that I ran into over here. But now, because this is such a tight fit, I'm not gonna frame up this wall like I've framed up the other ones. Instead, what I'm gonna do is actually cut the studs and put all the studs in and basically frame up everything but this end piece, put the wall up, and then slot the end piece in, which is why I'm trying to be so precise with my measurements, because I need to build it and then get it all to fit. Let's go cut our studs. Uh-oh, I have a problem. I don't even know how I screwed this one up like this. I somehow screwed up my slope, and so these are much too long. I am going to have to redo everything. Oh, I feel like such a numbskull. So I realized what I did wrong in that I calculated the slope of the studs slightly off because I hadn't done the measurements with my end piece in place, because I wanted the end piece to stay, and I was gonna put that on when everything else was set up. And so that means I'm shortening the studs right now so that everything has the proper slope, so that I have enough space so that the studs of the wall and the top plates of the wall fit underneath the slope of the roof. Sometimes I feel like such a moron when I make these types of mistakes. All right, let's try to get this back in place. It's looking like it fits pretty good. Here, I'm gonna use this clamp to get my 2x4s lined up because they are a little bit cockeyed right now. There we go. Nice and lined up. Pretty much flush. Let's screw this guy in. Uh-oh. It's not gonna fit. I can't get my driver in here because I have this stud so close to the other one, because each of the studs is 16 inches apart. I just started this way and moved it over here. And I figured since I was cutting this one up, it would be good to make this one closer than usual. But I didn't think about the screw length and what I'm gonna do about it. That's a problem that I'm gonna have to solve, but I've gotta go to a doctor's appointment. And so it's gonna be a problem I have to solve later. I don't know if you guys feel this way, but every time I go to the doctor, I always feel really, really nervous. All right. Well, yeah. Like I said, I always have anxiety when I have those doctor's appointments, but all's good. And just to be very clear, it wasn't anything fancy. It was just like an annual checkup. If you can, you really should be out there every year getting your annual health checkup with your practitioner. So go do that. And now we got to head back to the farm and continue building the hatchery. I'll see you guys next time.